If I am living my life in alignment with my purpose and my soul, then I think I'm living a successful life.
Welcome back to Full-Time Yoga Teacher Podcast. My name is Reika and I am your host. Today, I am recording this intro from El Salvador. I'm in a cute little surf beach town called El Tunco in El Salvador. And I was here 11 years ago when I backpacked across South and Central America with my best friend, Serena. And it's interesting to see how it has changed, grown, evolved since the last time I was here. I've been enjoying eating pupusas on a daily here in El Salvador. Pupusas used to be 25 cents each when I was here 11 years ago. Now it is up to about $1.50 each. So yeah, that's how the world has been changing in the past 11 years. I got to reunite with my partner here in El Salvador. So we've been just enjoying spending time together, chilling, and he is looking forward to surfing here. It's pretty well known for surfing here in this part of El Salvador. So this morning, we just had a monthly Yoga for Change yoga class, which is a fundraising, donation-based Zoom yoga class that I host once a month. And this month, we raise funds and awareness for an organization called Sojourn Yoga Foundation. I actually interviewed the founder and director of this organization. Her name is Jordan in the previous episode, I think 2 episodes ago. So if you haven't checked out that episode, please go check it out. She is doing amazing work around the world with her nonprofit organization, utilizing yoga to uplift and empower teens and women across the world. I have huge respect for her and what she has created and what she has done with her organization. And I was honored to host a fundraising Zoom yoga class for her organization. So if you still want to donate, it's not late. You can donate through my website, or you can just go straight to her website and donate any amount that you want to donate towards her cause. Okay. I do want to welcome those who might be the first time listening to this podcast. And if you are a returning listener, I want to say welcome back and thank you for continuing to listen and support this podcast. And if you are new, Full-Time Yoga Teacher Podcast is for yoga teachers or those who are interested in becoming a yoga teacher, whether you call yourself full-time or not. When I first became a yoga teacher almost 10 years ago, I wanted to know if it was possible to be a full-time yoga teacher. And for that reason, I wanted to speak to other full-time yoga teachers out there to see how they have made it work, what were some challenges they came across, and how did they overcome their challenges, and any tips they had for me who are starting out in this journey of full-time yoga teacher. At the time, I couldn't find that many people who were working full-time as a yoga teacher. I'm sure they were out there. It just were not easy to find them. So that is why I made this podcast, so I can interview all the amazing full-time yoga teachers across the globe and share their stories and journey of how they became where they are. And one of the things I want to highlight is how different everyone's life is as a full-time yoga teacher. Different specialty they choose to pursue, different lifestyle that they live to make this full-time yoga teaching career work and be successful in it. So this podcast is there as a resource and inspiration for any yoga teachers out there, because sometimes when I feel burnt out or I don't have enough inspiration to keep going as a yoga teacher, listening to other yoga teachers' journey and makes me re-inspire again. So that's why this podcast was made and created. So if you really enjoyed this podcast, the best thing you can do is share it with your friends, family, or whoever you think might benefit from this podcast. Sharing and word of mouth is the best way to get this podcast to spread, and that would be my dream if this podcast can spread and be heard by as many people as possible. One more quick announcement I want to make is that my mentorship program for yoga teachers, module number 3, is starting in September. So very, very soon. It is a 4-month module, so from September until December. And this is for any yoga teachers who like to be part of a community and continue to learn and deepen their knowledge and teaching skills as being a yoga teacher. There's the opportunity for continuing education by me as well as guest teachers. There will be monthly yoga philosophy talk and discussions and Q&A sessions. You also get one-on-one session to talk about your goals or your specific questions or challenges. And you also get unlimited access to my online yoga studio, which has on-demand libraries of hundreds and hundreds of yoga classes, as well as philosophy discussions, as well as continuing education workshops. So there's a lot of resources on my website that you're going to have access to. There'll be bite-sized anatomy lessons that'll be sent to you once a month. That is going to be made by me. And best part of joining the mentorship program is simply the community of amazing yoga teachers that you get to be around, grow with, encourage each other, celebrate one another's wins and success, and be part of a community. Sometimes teaching yoga can feel lonely. So this program is made so that you don't have to feel lonely in this journey of being a yoga teacher. There's a bottomless support and love in this program that I would like to spread it with any yoga teachers out there. So that is starting in September. It's still not too late to join. The application link will be on the show notes, so you can click and apply, because I want to make sure this program is the right fit for you, and you will be the right fit for the program and the amazing community that we have created so far. So apply if you're interested, and you will hear back from me. Okay, enough housekeeping for now. Today I have an exciting episode to introduce to you all. I interviewed Alina, and Alina and I worked together in Peru teaching 4 teacher trainings together. So we lived together, we worked together, we also even traveled together for 4 months, and we got to really know each other well, and we became good friends. And I'm very, very excited that I got to interview her. And what's also special about this interview is that I was able to interview her in person. We're just sitting across from each other to have this conversation, which is a unique opportunity because most of my interview happens online. So I do want to warn you that there are a lot of me saying in between Alina talking, so bear with me. I am a very talkative listener, and usually I mute myself when I'm doing an interview online, but since this interview was in person, I couldn't really mute myself, so you'll be hearing a lot of me saying But it was such a pleasure being able to interview her in person, as well as being able to work with her for 4 months. As I'm recording this intro in El Salvador, I just said goodbye to her a couple days ago, and it was somewhat emotional and sad goodbye, just because we were living together and working together for 4 months, so we really got to know each other. And I am a decade, 10 years older than her. I have such a huge respect for her for living this path of a traveling yoga teacher. Her passion and talent that she has for being able to bridge music and yoga, and her classes, her voices, her chanting, everything is just so magical and beautiful that I'm just really excited that you all, my listeners of this podcast, get to have a chance to hear her story and her journey. I think it's so inspiring how she has been traveling and teaching for several years already. At her age, I wish I was able to start this yoga teaching career early in my life, so I could spend maybe 5-8 years traveling and teaching before choosing to kind of settle down in one spot. Her stories are unique and beautiful, and she is leading a retreat in Panama at the beginning of next year. So I'm going to leave a link to her retreat that she's going to be leading in Panama. If you join her retreat, you're going to really have a good time taking a beautiful yoga class that is going to be filled with music, melody, singing, and chanting and dancing. So I highly, highly recommend checking out her retreat coming up in Panama. So let me tell you a little bit about Alina. Alina is a devotee of yoga, wellness enthusiast, an artist, and free spirit. Places utmost importance on connection, expression, and freedom. Her journey into yoga initially served as a means to deepen her self-connection, but it has since evolved into a global exploration, where she shares the sacred practice to help others embark on a similar path. With an extensive 500 plus hours of yoga studies across the United States, Europe, and India, Alina integrates her creativity and authenticity into every class. Her offerings include inventive vinyasa sessions, nourishing yin classes, expressive movement sessions, experimental sound bath, and much more. Nature and the interconnectedness of mind, body, and spirit drive her not only in her teaching but also in life. Alina is profoundly passionate about spreading this practice while honoring its sacred Indian roots, consistently reminding people of the true essence of yoga, union. So let me welcome you to this podcast interview I had with Alina, and I will speak to you on other side. Welcome, Alina, for coming to join me on the Full-Time Yoga Teacher podcast. I'm so happy that we get to have this time and actually interview you in person, because usually for this podcast, I'm always interviewing people on Zoom. So it's nice that we get to sit across from each other. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me and taking the time to talk with me. I'm excited to be on your podcast, and yeah.
Me too. So tell the listener, where in the world are you right now?
So right now, both of us, we are both in Peru, in the upper Amazon jungles of Peru, in Moyobamba. We are both here teaching at a yoga school together, and we're in the middle right now of our third training together. So yeah, it's a really nice area, town that not a lot of people would get the opportunity to come visit. So I feel really blessed to be here, and yeah, the nature is really beautiful.
Yeah. And it's actually Alina's second year back in this part of town, this part of Peru, teaching at the same yoga school. So I want to ask you deeper about your teaching experiences and your previous teaching jobs. But before we get there, I want to know, how did you first get introduced to yoga?
Yeah, great question. So I think that I got a lot of situations in my life presented it to me, but then there was like one that really made it stick. So I was I'm 26 years old right now, and I think I first got introduced to it when I was pretty young, like 15, 16. I did it a couple times. But then when I was about 18, 19 years old, I was really depressed, and my mental health was at a really all-time low. And also my physical health was really bad. I was having a lot of gut issues, and just my skin was bad, and overall just not in a good place mentally. So of course, I was being told by my friends and my therapist as well, like, you should start yoga. And I started really practicing it in a more serious way during this time of my life. And I also used to have a lot of problems with food and like disordered eating. So I think it was brought to me at a time in my life that helped me heal a lot of things that I wasn't even intentionally trying to heal. But yeah, it came to me at like a really low point in my life. And then in the beginning, it was very sporadic, super slow. Of course, it started with asana more because I needed a healthy way to move my body and get more flexible and stronger. And then it was like a quick thing. Like immediately within the first few months practicing, I started going like every week. I would go to 4 classes a week. And then, and I fell in love with it. And then eventually, maybe like 4 years of consistent practice. Yeah, it was I think like 18 when I first started consistently practicing. Yeah.
And at this time in your life, where were you living?
I was in Florida, in South Florida, and still I was like in my first year of college and university in Boca Raton, Florida. I was studying at Florida Atlantic University, and yeah, like I'm from South Florida. I've lived kind of all around South Florida, but during this time I was there, and yeah, it was like, you know, beginning of college, like going through all of the transformation, not having great friends.
Yeah. So you started practicing when you were in college?
Regularly, yeah. Like I was introduced to it in high school. I went to a couple classes. Like I tried it, but it never stuck until I was like, like 18 years old. Like my freshman year of college, I started practicing regularly. And then it's funny because I did my first YTT in my senior year. So it was almost like a full circle. Like at the end of university is when I was like, I want to start teaching.
Okay. So that's kind of brings me to my next question is, when did you start thinking or realizing that you wanted to become a teacher?
So I think that it was like a gradual thing that happened. Definitely within the first maybe year of consistently practicing, I knew I loved it a lot, and I knew that I wanted to explore it more. And it just, I was still in school, and I also like was working. So it was really hard for me to find a training or do anything. So I kind of just kept brushing it under the rug. Time went by, and then like I started getting really interested. So I would get books and start reading books about yoga and listening to podcasts about yoga. And this lasted maybe like 3 years, you know, all throughout college. I was like really interested in it. And then, and then I remember my senior year, because I studied graphic design, and like I've always been into art, so it was something I really loved. But at the same time, it still didn't really bring me that much fulfillment and that much passion. And when I found yoga, of course, I was like immediately passionate about it. So towards the end of like when I was with my senior year, because I graduated like right before COVID, like actually kind of during COVID. And I did my teacher training like right before I graduated. So it was like, I was like, okay, I want to have something else that I can have. And if, you know, when I get into the real world, whatever, if like I get a job and I don't like it, I at least have something. And it wasn't even to teach right away. Like I knew in the back of my head I did want to teach, but it was also to study and to learn more. But then as soon as I did my teacher training, I was like, okay, I want to teach. Like I knew it right away. It's like I think I would love this. I think I would be good at it. And like my practicum, when I did my first practicum too, I was like, this feels so good. So
that's so true. I feel like I see a lot of students join teacher training, not sure if they want to teach. Maybe there's a small desire to want to teach. But some people come in with like, I don't want to teach. I just want to learn more. But then I also see some students who, after going through teacher training, it really makes them like they feel they're ready, or they feel like they want to pursue teaching. So that's really cool that you weren't sure in the beginning of the teacher training, but by end of it, you really knew that you wanted to.
Exactly. It was a lot of clarity I had.
And tell me about your 200 hours. Where was it? How long was it? What kind of styles of yoga was it?
So my 200 hour I did was in South Florida, because like I said, at the time I was in school and I was working. So I really did want to go abroad. Like I had dreams of going to Bali, you know, and doing my teacher training. But in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, I'm kind of like waiting for the right moment to do that when I can just do it now. So I found there was a studio that I was practicing at the time, and that I loved, and I loved the teachers, the energy. And I remember I like had saw that there was a teacher training coming up, and the way the dates were going, and this was in Delray Beach, which is right next to Boca where I went to school. So the way that the schedule worked perfectly with like my school and my work schedule. Because it was like we were meeting every other weekend for like 3 months. So it was really flexible. And I felt that it was spread out enough for me to like learn the information and also integrate it. For at least my first training, because I also do believe that the immersive trainings are really great as well. So yeah, and then it was almost like an immediate, like I found out that the training was happening and I didn't even think twice about it. Like I was like, yeah, I'm doing this. And I just signed up and then, yeah, it was nice. It was a small group and it was nice to have it at like the studio that I had already known. I was practicing at, I knew the teachers. And
was it mostly Vinyasa teacher training?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was Vinyasa. We did Ayurveda, but mainly Vinyasa.
Yeah. And did you start teaching right away after finishing your 200? What happened after that?
I kind of like I finished my TTC. It took a little bit of time. Like I was teaching friends and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I did start doing like regular classes on my own at the beach in Florida.
Nice.
Which was really nice. Like I would always have a group of people come. And then I got opportunities to start subbing as well at the studio that I did my training at. And then I did get a slot to teach as well. That lasted like a good amount of time. I would say for a few months I was doing that. I had graduated and everything. And then I started doing more regular, consistent classes as well. And this went on for, I don't even remember exactly how long, but it was like a good amount of time until I started traveling.
Yeah. So what sparked your interest in traveling? What led you to leave Florida? But also, where does pandemic fall in place? Because you said pandemic was almost right before you graduated from your college.
Yeah. So I graduated and then like right when I started teaching like during COVID, basically. Like, so it was kind of hard. Like, the studio was closed for a bit, but then once they like reopened, they offered me, I started teaching and started subbing. It was like kind of like the end of 2020, like not the end, but like, you know, when like lockdown kind of started lifting and things started getting and businesses started reopening. It was like during that phase when I started teaching. Started like actually offering my services. So it's funny because, you know, people are always like, how was your teaching pre-COVID and post-COVID? But I never actually taught pre-COVID. So,
and I know Florida probably had a very different experience in California in terms of probably how long the studio had to stay closed. I feel like in California, we had to stay closed for quite a long time. We'll reopen and close, reopen and close. But I think when I interview other people from different states, they had a lot shorter time of business closing in different other states outside of California.
Yeah.
It's nice. You got to teach more.
Yeah, it was. We really did. There was not a huge lockdown in Florida. Like we were closed for the initial quarantine. Everything was closed for like the month of March, maybe April. And then things started opening. I would say that most of the studios and like fitness centers started opening in summer again. So it was like kind of a big come out. Of course, people were still scared and wearing masks while practicing and stuff. And it was like a bit of a at your own risk kind of situation. But yeah, I started teaching like during that time. And then I also started offering classes at the beach because it was nice for people to get outside and be with community and stuff like that. And then, my interest for travel started. Like I started traveling in the following year in 2021. It was like, I think March or April of that year. When I went on like my first trip. And I remember I went because I was like, I want to teach yoga and travel, you know, like teach. I always had a dream to teach yoga and travel. So I was like, I'm just going to start. And I had like, my job, I got laid off from my job. And then like,
what was your job?
Well, I was working in like graphic design for a bit. With a marketing agency. It was not very long. It didn't last very long. Right after I got laid off. I was also waitressing in a restaurant. And then I was like done with that. I was like, it was a lot exhausting on the body. I was like, I had a lot of money saved also because of the unemployment and everything going on. And like at the time I didn't have a place where I was paying rent anymore. So I was like, okay, this is the perfect opportunity for me to just go and get out of here. And not me realizing that was gonna spark like the year travel bug that I've still been on. I've had breaks because I did have like a 6-7 month break between one of my trips where I was teaching time in Florida, which I'll get to. But and like I started traveling and I was in Central America for most of the time. Specifically Panama, Costa Rica, most of my time in Panama.
What led you to Panama? And then was there any specific places, website or anything that you were able to find jobs before you moved? Or did you kind of move and look for a job there?
So what happened was like the first trip that I went on, I got this opportunity and I found it. I remember I found it online. It was like, I found it on Instagram.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, to go and like volunteer at this hostel. So I went and like I was teaching yoga. It was Alina, like the place that I ended up going back to work at, like then when I went back to Panama. So I was like teaching yoga there as a volunteer, just getting room and board.
Yeah.
And then from that, I started meeting a lot of people, meeting a lot of connections who were in the industry already, like working for Selena.
Yeah.
So from that, I was able to continue doing what I was doing, but traveling. So I started going to different locations. I went to Costa Rica, I went to Guatemala, and I was volunteer teaching. It was volunteer, which again, now I would say maybe I wouldn't do that anymore. Like now I always want to get paid for my work, but you know, I just really wanted to travel.
Yeah. So you were able to go to all the Selenas in different countries and volunteer there and teach and stay there for. So how many Selenas did you work at, and like how long were you staying in each one?
I was there for each one at least about a month, and I was in like both of Bocas del Toro, which is like the Caribbean side of Selena. I was there teaching, and then from there they were like, we need a teacher in Costa Rica, so I was there for a month, and then Guatemala, and then ultimately my journey led me back to Panama. So at the end of my trip, I went back to Panama.
Yeah.
And then I did travel a bit. Like I was in Panama for another couple months teaching. And then I traveled a bit more. Like I went to Colombia, and then whatever. That was like a big chunk on its own.
Yeah.
So in total, I spent I would say like 4 months in Panama on that trip.
Yeah.
And then time, like, you know, I was starting to run out of money. I was like, okay. I was like, I miss my friends. I miss my family.
Yeah.
Like towards, I don't even remember timing, because for me, timing, it get really mixed up. But it was like towards the end of 2021.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, so I went back to the States. And
in Florida.
Yeah, I was back in Florida for a bit, and not even long. Like I think it was like 1 month. And then I got an opportunity to go back to Panama and work.
And this was actual paid position this time.
This was like, it was like, you know, more stable. I was there, and I wasn't just teaching yoga. Like I was also helping. I was assisting the manager. There was another girl who's a really good friend of mine now, Jasanya. Jasanya, if you're listening, I love you. But she was like my boss, so I was like kind of her assistant. Yeah, she was like the wellness advisor.
Yeah, maybe tell the listener what Selena is.
Yeah, so Selena is like this. It's like this hostel, but it's a really nice hostel. It's like a higher end hostel that they have all around the world, but mostly it's really popular in Latin America, and it's big for like digital nomads who are working on and want to have like stable internet connection and have a co-working space. But the really good thing about it is that they offer wellness, like a lot of wellness. At least the ones in Panama did. Most of them do. So there's like a weekly yoga schedule every day, you know, and the one that I was at in Playa Banal, Panama, was pretty big on wellness. So they had like a lot of wellness events, a lot of classes. So yeah, that was like a really fun job that I had, because I got to work with Jasanya, and like we got to like plan things, and then I met a lot of really amazing people while I was there. My community was strong, and I loved that.
And I imagine during that time that digital nomad was like really growing, because it was around the time of pandemic. So a lot of people's work became remote, and I think a lot of young people realized like, hey, I could be working in Panama or Costa Rica. I don't have to stay in the United States. So I'm sure like was it quite busy during that time?
Yeah, for sure. Like there was a really good mix of locals and then also travelers in Playa Banal, which I loved about it. And anyone who's been to Playa Banal can say that it just has this like magnetic energy. Like you go there thinking you're going to stay for a month, and then you like stay for a year or something. So yeah, I think that was like a big part of my journey. And like, of course, I left with the intention of going back, but then I never went back. Yeah. Which, now that I look back, since I left Panama is when things really started. Like, like I started getting on teacher trainings, and like I had always wanted to teach on teacher trainings.
So how long were you working? Had a paid position in Panama?
I always say it's like longer than it is, but I think in total the position, I was there for like maybe 6 months or 7 months, actually working. Or maybe not even working, but like there in Playa Canal. Yeah. But in Panama in total, my time in Panama was like about a year. I'm thinking like even before when I was there. So yeah, it was like a really big part of my journey, and I'll never forget it. Like some of the people that I met there are like my best friends to this day. I still talk to, and I've met up with them multiple times. So I really am grateful for the experience I had there, even though it was short, like lived. It was still.
So you left Panama because it was time, and then you knew you wanted to get more into teacher training. So what happened after that?
Okay, so what happened was I left Panama, and I was home in Florida, and I was staying with my mom at the time because I didn't have like a place in the States. So I was a bit bummed, you know, how like everything kind of ended in Panama. It ended really abruptly because like I had plans to go back, but then life happens, things happen. I was heartbroken, and like so I was kind of sad for like the time that I was there. And then I remember this was before I had done a 300-hour. So I remember when I was in Panama, I kept saying like I really want to do my 300-hour. I really want to do it. And then finally I was like, okay, now is the time to do it. Like I didn't have anything, you know, like I was not employed at the time. I still had like money saved. So I was like, okay, what do I want out of my 300 hours? And then I started searching and, you know, looking at what I wanted. I think my first 300-hour that I did was very, I don't want to say generic, but like it was just one that I found and I liked it. And I was like, okay, let's go. So it was like Hatha, Ashtanga. And so yeah, I was home for like a couple months. After I like got back up, I was like, okay, and I went, this is when I traveled to Europe.
That's when your 300 hours was. Okay.
So I went to Spain.
Ooh, nice. Where in Spain was it?
And Tenerife and the Canary Islands. And I was there for 3 months in total.
Okay. How long was a 300-hour teacher training?
1 month.
1 month. Okay.
Yeah. But the reason that I really chose to go and do this school was because I was speaking with the owner of the school. Like I had a couple phone calls with her. I had a couple schools I was looking at.
Yeah.
And then I had a couple phone calls with the owner of the school in Spain. And she basically told me, like I went in August to do my training. And then she basically was like, well, because they do 200 hours and 300 hours.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, and she was like, in October, the month after you finish your 300-hour, we need a teacher for the 200-hour. Because the teacher that they have was like not going to be available that month. So she was like, she loved my vibe, I guess. And she saw like I had experience.
Yeah.
And she was like, I can tell you're passionate and you're coming fresh from finishing a 300-hour. So like, how would you feel about that? And I didn't even like ask her. She had asked me.
Yeah.
She was looking for a teacher to teach with her.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was like, there's no way I could teach the 200-hour training. Like, I'm not ready. I've never done that before. You know, it was like the imposter syndrome. So I kind of was like, are you sure? We talked about it back and forth. And then officially, I was like, you know what? This is something that I really want to do. I would like to explore this. Why not? She asked me.
Yeah.
And then I decided, okay, I'm going to do this 300-hour and then I'm going to stay and teach the training after with her.
So what month were your 300? And was it right after the 200 or did you have some break?
I had a break. I remember like we had a couple weeks off. And then that time I had gone to Greece to visit my family, my mom and my sisters. We did like a nice family trip, which was great. And then I had gone back to Spain to teach. So the 300-hour was a month, like a little less than a month, about 3.5 weeks, 3 weeks. And yeah, it was really nice. It was a very small group, and it was the school is called Shambhala Yoga School in Tenerife, the Canary Islands. And it was like small. It was really, the groups were really close and connected. And what was really nice about it was that we had to cook our meals like all together, which brought us really close. Like they provided us with the ingredients and everything, but we had to like get together and make our meals.
I like that.
It was kind of different. Yeah. And so yeah, we studied Ashtanga and Hatha Yoga Pradipika.
How many people were in your 300 and also how many people were in the 200 that you assisted?
So there was I think it was 8 for both, because I think their max capacity is 8.
Oh, okay.
It's a small school.
Group.
So it's like they're like a family who owns it. They live in their house with their kids, and then attached to it is the school. Like they have like they built like two shalas and then like another little building with the rooms.
Oh, nice.
So it's a very like privately small owned school, but it is very popular in Europe. Like it's one of the most popular schools in Europe to study yoga. I think they were ranked pretty high.
Yeah.
And
how was it? How was leading or assisting or co-leading a 200-hour?
I loved it immediately. Like, of course, in the beginning, it was stressful because it was my first time. You know, I had never taught lectures or anything like that. But I remember I kept telling Andrea, who's the owner of the school, like, oh God, I'm nervous. Like, what if I don't know enough? What if they ask me questions and I don't know how to answer? And she just kept reassuring me, like, Alina, you know more than them. You know, you're passionate about yoga. You know it. You've been studying it. At the end of the day, you know they're coming because they want to learn. They don't know that you know more than they know. And she kept reassuring me of that. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I do know a lot. And then the more we started getting into the training, like I was teaching like mythology. So I was teaching all the philosophy. I also did some anatomy, which I'm not going to lie is not my strong. So I kind of was very nervous teaching anatomy, but it's okay. I got a lot of refreshing knowledge on that. And then she was doing more of the asana, like alignments, things like that. Okay. Which I was helping out with as well. But as soon as we got like into it, the lectures, and I started talking, I was like, wait, I actually do know a lot. Like she's right. You know, I'm passionate. I love talking about it. And I love teaching things that I actually like. So yeah, like the training was also 3 weeks, so it's longer than the ones we do here in Florida.
Was it a paid experience? Did you get paid for assisting? Paid. Okay.
It was paid, which was immediately off the bat. I was like, yes, because I was used to kind of getting volunteer positions or even underpaid. Like even the job in in Selena, like very underpaid. So it's like I was really happy about finally like getting paid for like work that I was doing, and it's hard. It's really hard, especially if you're a travel yogi, to make money.
Because there's so many, it seems like from what I've seen and heard, and there seems like there's a lot of teaching yoga positions in the world out there that are in exchange of free accommodation or a free breakfast or lunch or dinner, or maybe all of them. But it's harder to find actually like well-paid position if you want to travel and teach.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, you have to like pick your battles, right? Like if you want to make it sustainable, then you have to eventually start getting paid. If you want to travel for like 5-6 months just to take a break, then yeah, maybe you want to just volunteer if you have money saved. But it's when it's like a lifestyle, you know, when it becomes a lifestyle, then it's what you accept is different. You expect more. You have higher boundaries that you want or higher expectations from a job, which is perfectly fine and it's normal. And so that job was paid, and I felt really good about that, and I felt really amazing that she saw something in me, because I feel like had she not asked me, I don't think I would have found my way into teaching TTCs. Like after doing that, I was like, I love this. This is amazing. And the funny thing about that is when I was in Spain, I was in contact with the owners of Moksha. So I was in contact with them. I had already done my first interview with Vincent.
And how are you finding these international traveling yoga teacher jobs?
So this is where, so Moksha I found Moksha through Yoga Trade. And this is when I finally started using Yoga Trade, which is a platform that most travel teachers know of. It's really good. There's a lot of, like I said, volunteering options on there, but there's also a lot of really nice paid jobs on there. So I have found this job on Yoga Trade, but then I also had a teacher in the past that I had like crossed paths with. I think we like followed each other on Instagram that like had taught here. So I remember seeing that and being like, I want to do it. Had my mind like set on it. And it's funny because if you ever ask the owner, like Vincent, he would be like, yeah, like Alina, like I was emailing every day. Like, I was like, not every day, but I was on top of it. Like I really wanted this job. I was like, I'm gonna get it. So when I was in Spain, it was like, I think during my 300 hour or like right after it ended, I was interviewed with Vincent. It went really well. And he was like, yeah, like we want you to come, whatever. And originally, like I was planning to come the following year in like June. So it was going to be like a while from then, like a year. But then I remember he had called me or messaged me and he was like, we have cancellation, teachers can't come. So we have 3 slots open January, February, March. Do you want to come then? And I was like, wait, this is great because I'm in Spain until probably would have been there till the end of the year. I would have gone back home to Florida to be with my family for Christmas. And then I would have gone to Portugal. And it was great. You know, it was salary.
They paid for flights.
Yeah, they paid for flights, everything. So I was like, this is awesome. So we agreed on that. It was amazing. Whatever. I went to teach my 300-hour in Spain. And then time went by, and eventually, like I got an email from them saying that they're closing the school for a few months for personal reasons. They wanted to take a sabbatical, you know, understandable. They wanted to go on a little bit of a break. Yeah. So I won't be going anymore. And of course, I got really bummed out because I was like so excited. I finally got the job I had been wanting. And then, so of course my plan didn't work out. And then I had to go back to the States. And I was back in the States in Florida. And this is when I was home for like 8 months, like for a while. Yeah. I was like, okay, I want to be grounded. I'm really blessed that like my family has a property that I can like live at when I am in the States. When I had space, they do rent it out sometimes, but at that time it was open and I didn't have to like get an apartment. So I was able to live there. And then this is when I started teaching in studio full time. So I started I got 2 studio jobs, new studios that I had never taught at. I want a fresh start. And I started to build my community in Florida, which was really nice. And I started to really love it. And I was teaching full time. And I was also still doing graphic design. So meanwhile, throughout all of this, I've always been doing freelance graphic design. I would say up until now, at this point, I don't do it because I just have had a hard time finding jobs. But I always would do about like 10 to 12 hours of graphic design freelance a week, which was another side income that I had, which was really grateful. So I was able to make it work with that. And then teaching full time, I was teaching about, I think like 9 classes a week scheduled or maybe 10. But then I was subbing up till like 16 to 20, which I know you say you teach about like 30.
At the most, I was teaching about 30 classes a week, but that's not sustainable.
So like even me, I was like,
and if you had the freelance graphic design work, that I feel like that works so well with like teaching maybe 9, 10, or even like 8, 7 classes a week and having that graphic design work. I feel like that kind of is a nice balance.
Yeah, it was nice. It was nice. And then I was also like helping out front desk at the yoga studio I was teaching at. So it was nice. Like I had a lot of different sources of income. I still wasn't making like that much money, you know, like I don't know had it been sustainable if I was paying rent, because I wasn't paying rent at the time. Like I was paying rent to my family, but it was like not what a normal rent would have been. You know, I was paying like maintenance and things like that. So, but I loved it, and I what I really loved about it was being able to build community in the studio, because I hadn't had that really. Because I was moving around. So like I was teaching at 2 studios. One of them was a hot yoga studio, and then one of them was like a privately owned studio, to which to this day I still do teach at when I am in Florida. Love the owners; they're amazing. I was kind of just driving around. They were far. One of them was in Delray Beach, which is like where I was living before. And then the other one was a little bit more south, like Fort Lauderdale area. So I was just driving around, you know, sitting in traffic. But I loved it. And of course, at some point when it was too many classes, I did start feeling like I was losing the spark. And I was like, I felt that it was almost becoming robotic and just like, okay, I have to go teach a class. And that's when I was like, wait, I don't want that to be the case. Like I want to always love teaching. So then I was like, but then I still continued doing it for a while. And then, I got to teach like workshops while I was there. I did like sound workshops, a lot of things like that. And that was a really good period. Because what happened was like, I was really sad at first, you know, because I had originally was thinking of I was going to go to Peru and teach. But my plans got canceled. But if they didn't, I wouldn't have been able to have that experience teaching studio and building community.
Yeah, so true.
I do think as a teacher, it's really nice to see what it's like to be in a studio setting and to work in a studio setting.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, yeah, it's not for everyone. Like, I don't think it's sustainable, like you said, to do full time in studio.
Yeah.
But I loved it. Yeah, I loved, and I had a lot of really good students that I still keep in contact with, and then a good friend of mine who's a Reiki practitioner. She and I would do a lot of events, like Reiki circles with yoga. So it was really nice to explore that in a place and be still for a bit, which I really appreciated. Yeah. And then
what happened?
you're like, then what's next?
Then what's next? So you were back in Florida for a while, for like 8 months or so, you said? 6-8 months? Yeah.
Yeah, about like, yeah, I think it was like 6-7 months. I don't know exactly. Like I know I had left it was like July of that year.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was about up until, like, I had got back around the holiday season up until July. So about like 7-8 months. Yeah. So yeah. And then, I was in the flow. I wasn't like thinking too much, whatever. I was still traveling. Like, I had gone to Costa Rica for a festival with a couple of my friends, happy, content. And then I don't remember dates again. Like, I'm not the best with time. Like, I don't know my perception of time. Sometimes it's like a month. It's like a week, But I think it was like in the spring of last year, 2023. I remember I had just gone back from Costa Rica because I had gone to a festival in Costa Rica in February.
Yeah.
So I had just gone back. I think it was like March. And then the school here in Peru, Moksha, they said had reached out to me again. Well, actually, I had reached out to them because I saw the posting on Yoga Trade again. And I was like, they're open? So I like emailed and I was like, hey, like, just so you know, I'm still interested in this dog.
Yeah.
So some time went on and I kind of just like let it go a bit. And then they got back to me. And they were like, hey, like, if you're still interested in coming, we would like to have you. We have a slot open for these dates. And it was like July, August, September of last year. And I didn't even think about it. I was like, I'm in. I was like, yes. Because as much as I love being stable, I mean, my Vata energy, like, I love moving. Yeah. So at some point, like, I'm ready to go. And at that time, like, it still was early in the year. It was like March or April. So I was like, I'm content now, but by July, I'll be ready to go, By then, I'm like, okay, I'm going to want change. I'm going to want something new. So we had some calls again. I signed the contract, whatever. And I agreed to come back for those 3 trainings, July, August, September. And then, in the months between then, I was still in Florida teaching at the studios. And I guess moving like fast forward.
Yeah, you packed everything up and left Florida yoga community to come to
Florida. And it was really sad. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I didn't think it was gonna be sad because I guess I was used to just moving around a lot. But I hadn't had a community like that, like a set community. So it was kind of sad for me to leave. It's always sad ending something. Even when I had left Panama, when I had Spain. It's always sad, but it's like knowing that there's something new that's coming. It's exciting.
Yeah.
So it was hard when I left. Like, I remember my last class teaching at one of the studios. The students, like, well, some of them like got me gifts.
Yeah.
And like, it was so cute. Like, they all were really sad I was leaving. And one of my students actually was Peruvian. And he got me like these like traditional like Peruvian
nice. So cute.
It was really cute. So I felt really loved and appreciated. And I really was grateful to have that time in community. And to this day, even now, I'm still like, I crave that again,
Yeah.
So that's the thing that you don't get when you're always traveling, unless you are, even though I do feel I have a community here in Moksha, but it's like we get a new group of students every month.
Yes.
So it changes,
Exactly. And the teachers are changing every 3-4 months.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no like community in town. It's a little bit hard. So I packed up. I was like, I'm out of here. I'm going to Peru. It's funny. Like, I had told all my students, I'll be back. I did end up going back to one of the studios.
Yeah.
Not the hot yoga studio. They wanted someone like who was going to be there full time.
Yeah.
The other studio, they let me, every time I'm in Florida, she lets me sub classes.
Nice.
I'm really grateful for. So I packed up and I came to Peru. I remember I had stopped in Mexico first. Mexico City to visit a friend, and then I came to Peru and I had a few days before the first training started, I was excited. I was a little nervous because some time had gone by between the last time, because the only training I had taught on was the one in Spain. So I was still a little nervous, but I was more excited and more confident than nervous.
Yeah.
And the first teacher I was teaching on, I was with an Indian teacher. She was here the whole 3 months that I was here last year, which we really connected with a lot. I really connected with her in a lot of ways. And then another teacher who was Canadian from Mexico, but then it switched. She left and another teacher came. So yeah, from the beginning, the first course went really well. I also became really close with like going to school. The living situation was great. I loved it. I was really happy.
Yeah.
And then I got to travel like in between the trainings. I got to travel around Peru. I got to Machu Picchu and I got to Cusco. Yeah, that was a 3-month contract. So I did July, August, September.
And then did you go back to Florida again after that? Or what happened after you finished the contract here in Peru?
So I had the opportunity to go to Guatemala in November to teach, like not lead teach, but be like a co-teacher on another training with another school.
So did you find that position while you were in Peru searching for another teacher training online?
Yeah, so that school wasn't on Yoga Trade. I had done my research and I found the school online because when I was considering my 300-hour training, they were one of the options that I wanted to do. They were one of the options. And there's something about the training looked really cool to me. Yeah. So I was still really interested in it. And I was like, okay, well, if I can't do a 300-hour with them, how can I get on the team? Yeah. And this is how I am. Like, I'm very much like I find a way to do it. Like, even if it's like completely delusional, I'm going to email everybody.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think
so. I emailed them. And they were like, yeah, like you can come as like a shadow. So I went and like that course I didn't like necessarily like get paid the full tuition as like the lead teacher was, but I was still teaching and I was still getting free housing and everything. So I went and I did it. And then that went really well. I did have a break in between, so I was able to go to Florida and back and then now I'm on that team. So when we get to the present moment, I'm going to go teach another training with that school after this month. So and that school is really cool. I like seeing how different schools do their training. And now, I mean, right now, I would say I've done three. This is like my 7th training. No, 8, because I did it in India. This will be my 8th training that I've taught on. So I definitely feel like I love teaching on training. Yeah. I think it's like a different dynamic. Yeah.
And I know you went so between the first time you came to Peru to teach a training with the school Moksha, and then before coming back, second time this year, you went to India. Yeah. So tell me about, you did your 300 hours in India.
Yes. Okay, cool.
Your second 300.
I love to talk about that. So yeah, after I had left Guatemala, after I taught at that other school, I came back to the States again, Florida for Christmas. It's crazy, like how fast time flies when you're doing all this. It's like, it's always like holidays bring me back. You know, it's already Christmas, it's already New Year. It's like, yeah, I had gone back to be with my family for the holidays. I like being with my family for the holidays. It's nice. So, and then I had already planned. It's funny because when I was here through last year, during this time is when I was planning to go to India. I was like, I had met Kanti, and she was that Indian teacher. Shout out Kanti, love you. And she was like, Alina, you have to go to India. And I was like, I have to go to India. So I was like, I had it in the back of my mind, like I'm going to India, I'm going to India. And I was searching for another 300-hour because I liked the first one I did, but it was not very. It was just kind of, it wasn't like niche, you know, I wanted something more like I was really interested in, something that I really, really wanted to invest in.
Yeah. And what was that? What was it that's niche or the particular thing you were looking for in 300?
So during this time, I was interested in Bhakti. And last year, I was really getting into Bhakti. So I was really getting into like mantra singing. You know, I had my harmonium, but I really wasn't using it much in classes. I loved singing mantras. I loved going to kirtans. So I was like interested in it, but it was very much like the tip. And then Kranti got me even more into it because we would sing mantras together all the time. Nice. She loved Bhakti yoga. So I really got inspired. I was like, I want to do a training that has Bhakti in it, or like a Bhakti training. Like I want there to be Bhakti in it. And so I was doing my research. And it took me a really long time to find a training that I wanted.
Yeah.
Like I remember I found a school that I really liked that was based in Goa.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed really nice. And for a while I was like set on that.
Mm-hmm.
But it still was missing
Mm-hmm.
that aspect of bhakti that I wanted. Like I
Mm.
wanted to learn mantra. I wanted to learn how to lead kirtan. I wanted to learn how to incorporate that into my classes.
Yeah.
Practice of bhakti. I wanted to be around bhakti.
Yeah.
So then I just kind of didn't commit to anything. I kept looking and I kept looking. And then a friend of mine, actually, one of the teachers who I taught with last year, the first training, she is the one who sent me the training.
Oh, okay.
And also I had already was listening to the podcast also. So the teacher I studied with, Raghunath, he has a podcast. He's pretty well known in the Bhakti community.
Yeah. What's the name of the podcast?
Wisdom of the Sages.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a really great podcast. So I had already like known of him, but I wasn't like really, like I didn't know much about, I didn't even know he had a training he was doing. So my friend sent me it and she was like, Alina, this is perfect for you. She was like, you should do this training. Yeah. And it's like, I saw it and I was like, oh my God. And I was like, this is like exactly what I want. Like, it's like, there's still asana. There's still Ayurveda. There's still like everything, but it's a Bhakti training. So it's like, I'll have kirtan every day. I'll learn, I'll like be able to apply Bhakti into my life, learn mantra and all of that. So I almost like immediately knew that that was the training I wanted to do. Yeah. It was a bit pricey, so I was a bit conflicted on like paying that much money for it. But because I really wanted to do it, I had reached out to them and they were really understanding of me. So they gave me a nice discount, like a scholarship almost. Which was nice. So I got to use that money. I would have paid extra on my flights to India. So yeah, I definitely had to make an investment on that training. But it was so worth it. Like I kept going back and forth being like, okay, like, is this the smart decision? Like, should I do this? Should I do this? Should I go all the way to India right now and spend all this money? But something about even the money didn't even, like, I was like, the money's gonna come back. Like, I had the money, first of all, like, I could afford it still with having money. Like, I wasn't gonna be broke. I had gotten all of it. So I was like, okay, I can do it, you know, like it's not impossible.
Yeah. And how long was the training?
It was about a month. Yeah. Like a few, about 2, 3.5 weeks.
And what part of, where in India did you go for that?
It was like North Maharashtra. So about 2 hours north of Mumbai. Okay. So kind of in like a random area. It was more in like the rural countryside. But it was located at this place called Govardhan Eco Village, which is like a really big Bhakti center. Like they have a bunch of different ashrams. And the thing that's really beautiful about it is that it's modeled, every ashram that's built on the property is an exact replica of the ashrams in Vrindavan. And Vrindavan in India is like a really, really holy site. It's like apparently, they say it's like it is in all the scriptures, it's the birthplace of Krishna, or not the birthplace, but where Krishna was like raised. So it's really big in like, especially for the devotees, you know? So they replicated all of the ashram, the temples. There was like a mini Vrindavan, which was really nice, but it was also like away from the hustle and bustle because Vrindavan is really, it's a city. So it's like real India. So it was like a replica in Vrindavan, but like away from the hustle and bustle because you were in like an eco village with some of the cleanest water in India. Like, dates are everywhere. There was an Ayurvedic doctor on site. The food was incredible. We would do like, I'm really blessed that I was there at a time where there was a lot of big Bhakti like people there. So like I got to see kirtan with like a lot of big Bhakti, like kirtaniyas, like Johnny Harrison and like a lot of these big named people in the kirtan community. So I was like almost like I was on cloud 9 all the time. Like I was like on this like eternal high, like this Bhakti high. And the whole month. Yeah, the whole month. And of course I loved it. Like I was just every day in kirtan, like Hare Krishna. Like it was amazing. And I was so happy that I chose to do that training. Like there wasn't one ounce of regret or anything in me. And the crazy thing was that like I flew out to India on January 1st. Oh wow. So I had started my year right in India. The training started January 3rd. Wow. So it was like New Year back. So yeah, I really, really, really loved that training. And I think it was one of the best experiences like in my whole life. Yeah. And that was, I got to meet some really amazing people. I had some really amazing teachers. I had like 6, 7 teachers. Raghu, who was the main teacher, like it was his training. But we had really amazing music teachers, philosophy teachers. Yeah. It was incredible.
Yeah. And do you think that training really had a huge influence on how you teach yoga today?
I think, right now in this moment, like since then, my teaching has evolved. From the last time I was here in Moksha to now, I feel like I'm a lot more refined. Like I have like a way that I teach now and I love it. And it's like, I feel like it's very much me, you know, like I love incorporating music into my classes because I've always come from a musical background as a kid. I've always loved music. So it was really nice to be able to incorporate that part of myself into my classes. And I loved it so much. It was amazing. But after the training ended, I had a hard time integrating it back to the day-to-day life.
I know you got another teacher training job in Goa after that. So how did you find that position or that opportunity? And what led you there next?
So since I knew I was going to be in India, I was looking on Yoga Trade, you know, because I didn't want to just go for the training. I wanted to spend some time there. I'm flying all the way to India. I would like to spend at least 2 or 3 months.
Yeah. So you only bought one-way ticket to India? I love that.
That's always what I do. Always one way.
And then look for opportunities once you're there. Next opportunity.
And even if I do buy a round trip, I never get on the flight back. You know, I always change it or I always miss it.
Which I think is great because when you look on Yoga Trade and you're looking for different jobs in a different country, it's rare to find a job that actually pays for your round trip flight. So if you're already in India, it's easier to find another job in India where you don't have to pay another round trip flight out of your own pocket because you're already there, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. And so I was like, I'm already going to be in India. Let me look for jobs in India. This was like before I had even left. Sometimes, I'm normally not a planner. Like normally I go with the flow, but in cases where like work, like if I'm going to stay longer in a place, I would like to have a job, you know, because then I'm just kind of dilly-dallying.
So and I like to think a little ahead with your job, teaching job.
Sometimes. Like, I'm like, oh, you just look. So I remember I had found this posting for Goa Yoga Shala, which is a yoga teacher training school, 200 hours.
Yoga Trade, on Yoga Trade.
On Yoga Trade, and it's in South Goa, and I got on the beach.
And not too far from Mumbai, so. It's not too far.
It's one flight, like an hour. You know, I think you could also take a bus, but I'm not on trains. I'm not sure. So I had spoken with the owner back and forth a bit. He was looking for someone to come and stay longer term. Like he wanted someone to stay for 3-4 trainings at a time. But I couldn't, he wanted someone starting January. And I was like, I can't, I have my training. I was like, I can do February and March, but then I can't do April because I had already committed to coming back here next, which like right now, I had already committed to that. So I was like, I can't. I can just do February and March or one or the other, like, or just February. So he was like, okay. Something about him, we really connected. He really liked me. Like, I think he really wanted to hire me. So he was like, okay, I'll let you know. And then I remember when I was in India, like when I was in my training, at this point, I didn't even know what my plan was. It was like, whatever happens. I trust God. Like, I don't care. Like, if I'm meant to stay, I'll stay. If not, like, I'll go. So he had reached out to me and he was like, listen, if you're still interested, I would like you to come teach February. He had a teacher for March. He was like, I need someone for February. And I was like, perfect.
Was it a paid position or trade position?
It was both. So it was paid and trade, no flights, which was why I was like, okay, I'm already in India. I don't think I would have flown all the way over there for that job, but I was already in India. Pay was good. It wasn't like a lot, but it was still pretty decent. Housing, food.
For like, well, breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Okay, nice. Perfect. You know, so I immediately was like, yes, I'm down, and it was perfect because my training had ended like end of January, and that training had started like second week of February. So I had, even like third week of February. So I had like 3 weeks.
Okay, nice.
Weeks, and I traveled a bit south of India. I got to see like Kerala, Hampi, like all those places. So that was nice. And then I immediately said yes, and then right after the training ended, a beautiful part of this training was that we got, what was included was this thing called the Flower Festival in Mumbai, and it's like a big thing that, so Srila Prabhupada, who is the main guy who, like the eco village was his vision. He's a Swami, so he's taken like lifetime renunciation. So like he doesn't get any of the money, but it's like his vision, and he created the whole project. So he has this thing where every year at that time he does a flower festival in Mumbai for like, it's like very Bhakti, you know, like they everyone sits together picking flowers, and then like we throw the flowers at each other and we sing mantras. So that was like kind of the end of the training. Like it was like the finale. So all of us together as a group, we traveled to Mumbai, and we stayed there for a couple nights, and we got to go to the flower festival together. We got to wear our saris and our gopi skirts and stuff, and that was like honestly one of my highlights of my whole India trip was that day. It was so beautiful, so much fun. Like the intention and the community aspect of everyone sitting together and like picking the flowers, and it was just so much fun. So that was like kind of the end. And then from that, everyone went on their separate ways. And people went back home. Most people went back home. I think I was like the only one, maybe one other person in the group who had stayed in India and continued traveling. And then I traveled a bit. Like I said, I went to Hampi. I had met up with another friend of mine who was in India at the time. I did try meeting up with my other Indian teacher. It didn't work out, but yeah, I traveled a bit, and then eventually I ended up back in Goa. And I was in Goa for the last about month and a half of my time in India.
Nice. Teaching a teacher training or co-leading it with other teachers.
And to be completely honest, I hated Goa at first.
I remember because I think we had a Zoom call during that time.
You
were still coming down from the high of Bhakti training.
I hated it. I feel like I was just having a really hard time integrating after the training. It was really hard for me to meet people, which wasn't the case at all. Right away, like within like a week, I met such an amazing community. But it was like I just was like really sad, and I was contemplating leaving. Like I was like, I'm gonna go. I'm not gonna stay. He has to find another teacher. I like was about to tell him you have to find another teacher, but I've had that problem a lot of times, and I always end up loving it. Like every time I hate a place in the beginning, I always end up loving it. So I was like, Alina, this always happens. Just give it a chance. And I remember I talked to a couple of people who were also like, just give it a chance. You're gonna love it. So then, literally within like, once the training had started, because I had a few days. Once the training had started, literally within like 5 days, I started meeting people, and I started to like it. Like it took a second. But and then I had a really hard time leaving Goa. I was so sad. I almost like missed my flight. I want to leave. Always how it goes. That's always how it goes. But so the training started, and it was like the training in Goa was a 4-style training. So it was 200 hours, and it was Hatha, Ashtanga, Vidyasayir. So each week was a different style. And the way he would hire teachers was based on what style they were going to teach. So I was teaching Vidyasayir. So the first 2 weeks basically had off. I was helping, like I was there helping with the asana clinics, things like that, anything they needed help with. But basically I was off. So it was kind of nice. I had a lot of time to explore Goa. During this time is when I started really meeting the community of friends that I have there. I started doing like they had ecstatic dance every Sunday. I would go breath work. Like it was amazing. I would swim in the ocean every day. And I really also got to connect with a few of the students. There was a couple of my students who I really got close with, and to this day I still speak with. And then I started teaching 3rd week Vinyasa, 4th week in. And
then after that you left. You went back to Florida before coming back to Peru.
I stayed a little bit in Goa. I would say like a week after the training. And it's funny, I had a flight back, and I wanted to stay. I was like, I don't have to be in Peru till April, end of April. I really, really wanted to stay. And I kept seeing that it was India is the one place you should not miss your return flight. Otherwise, you're going to pay another $1,000. Anywhere else, Latin America, I'm fine. But I was like, I can't afford to pay another $900 for a new flight. It was like $500 to change my flight.
Oh no.
For $600. From now I only book flexible flights. I've done my lesson.
But
so I left. I still think about India all the time. And I really am like thinking of going back next year.
Yeah.
Like in the back of my mind.
But you have enough contacts, people you know, network that you could, see if you can find a job there.
Yeah.
Find a teaching job there.
Yeah. It's just like the culture is just so rich there, for anyone who loves yoga. I always say you should visit India once in your life.
Yeah.
It's definitely a hard place to be. Like it's not for everyone. Traveling there is not easy. You don't have the comforts that you're used to, especially if you're from the West. So it tested me a lot of times. I got sick, really, really, really sick, more than once.
Yeah.
But I don't think like that's a reason I wouldn't go back. Like I think about India like every day. Like I'm like I really think I will go back next year. We'll see. Maybe do another training. My teacher does like pilgrimages a lot, so like I would love to go and actually travel to the holy sites more, which I didn't get to do. Like I want to go to Rajasthan. I would love to go to like the really sacred sites. I didn't get to go to the Taj Mahal, and then even like the north, like the Himalayas, Dharamshala, like all of that. So. I have time. Yeah, I don't need to see everything.
Yeah, exactly.
At once, but yeah, the Indian culture is just beautiful. Like all the stories of the gods and goddesses, the tradition. It's like so beautiful.
Yeah,
it's so beautiful, and yeah, that was my trip to India, and then I had gone back to the States like. In March, mid-March maybe, and I had about a month and a half back in the States, which I honestly was really looking forward to. Like by the time my India trip ended, I was ready to leave. Like, I'm ready to go home. I'm ready to have my comfort and my luxuries. So it was nice. Yeah, and it was nice to have a break also between coming back here.
Yeah,
and then like I said, that studio that I used to teach at full time. Every time I'm in the States, they let me.
Be on a sub list.
So I was subbing.
Nice.
And the really amazing thing was after I finished my 300-hour training, I almost immediately in Goa had the opportunity to start leading kirtan.
Oh, nice.
So I think it was like maybe 2 weeks after my training, I got like an opportunity to lead kirtan at Shrinda school. And then also at like a little cafe in Goa that I was friends with the owners. They were like, we want you to lead kirtan. So I led maybe like 3-4 kirtans immediately. Like, after it being like fresh, I started incorporating it into my classes immediately. I bought like a really nice harmonium in India. And then when I came back to the States, I was like, I want to do a kirtan here. Like how can I do it? So I had asked the studio that I sub at, and she was like, the owner loves kirtan. She was like, you can do it here. I have a friend who like plays the Mridanga in Florida, so I asked him to come and join. And I did my first kirtan in Florida, which was really nice. And I feel that now my teaching is evolving, and I like to do kirtan, and I love to incorporate it into my classes, even if it's just like a little bit of mantras at the beginning or in the end, just to open up the voice.
And how did your family and friends react to you kind of like choose after graduating college and it's like, I'm going to be like traveling yoga teacher? Were they supportive? Were they surprised? Were they not so supportive?
Okay, I'm very blessed. Like my family is really supportive of whatever I want to do. My mom trusts me and she supports me. So like my dad maybe would have been the opposite. So my dad passed away before COVID, so he actually hasn't been able to see any of this lifestyle that I'm living. I don't think he would have been very fond of it.
Really,
I do think up there, I think he is so proud of me. And I think he really like is really happy that I'm going after my dreams. But he was a bit hard on me. So for sure, sometimes I do like the back of my mind, I question like, but I don't have a lot of stability. But my mom has always been supportive. For sure, in the beginning, she kind of thought it was like a phase, Like she was like, go travel, get it out of your system, come back. So like after every trip, she would be like, okay, so are you gonna like get a job now? Are you gonna like stay here now? After every trip, and like I started just like not even listening to her. And then it wasn't until like I think last year, when I came here, she started like being like, okay, she's not. This is her life now. Like she likes doing this. This is her lifestyle. Let me respect it. And then now she sees that I'm actually like I'm making money, and like even my retreat now that I'm about to start hosting in the next week, which I'll talk about, but she's like, okay, like she's able to like support herself, like I don't ask for anything. Like I'm able to provide I don't need much. I'm not the type of person that needs like a lavish lifestyle. Like I need the very basic stuff, as long as I have what I need, I'm happy. So it's like, as long as she knows now that like I'm able to support myself, and like I'm making it work, and I'm doing the things that I love, and I'm happy. So now that she sees that, she kind of is a bit more, she hasn't been she's not up my butt about it anymore. Like she's like, okay, I trust that you have a good head on your shoulders. You know what you're doing, and you're not stupid. You're not just like messing around. So she knows how passionate I am. She always tells me she's proud of me, that I'm like going after what I want, because she also never didn't get to do that, So yeah, it's always nice having support. Of course, I don't think that you shouldn't follow your dreams if you're not like if your family doesn't support you, you should still go after the things you want. But it is always nice to have your family and friends support you, because it's like I'm close with my family, so I want them to like think that I'm doing good. I don't want them to like be disappointed in me. So that always helps. And I love when my mom tells me she's proud of me, and my family too. Like my sisters always say they're proud of me. Both my sisters are like corporate, like they're the usual like 9 to 5. So they always tell me like I'm the black sheep. Like they always say I'm like a born leader, because like I don't take like I live the way I want to live. No one's gonna tell me what to do. And my friends, I've lost a lot of friends once I've started this path, for sure. I've lost, like I would say I have a good group of close friends, but I've lost a lot of friends once I've like dedicated myself to this path. A lot of like people just naturally kind of fall off, and I'm okay with that. So I don't force anything. I don't force relationships, even romantic relationships. I've lost naturally, so it's like I think everything happens.
Do you get tired of continuously moving to new places, even though you're not moving consistently? Like you're moving every few months, or I know you were in Florida for 6 months, and then like right now you're in Moyobamba for 4 months. So you're not like traveling every week, but do you still feel kind of unsettled because you are kind of moving every half a month, 3-4 months, or do you feel like that's just the right amount of time for you?
Yeah, I definitely like, because like I said, my nature is more airy. I'm very Vata. So I feel that I do get tired really quickly, which is why I have had to make the transition in the past years of doing only slow travel. Because in the beginning I was like moving. But even now, I still do feel a little bit unstable, like in the sense of like I don't really have a base. Like Florida is my base, but I don't really have like a home there. Like I don't have my own place there. I feel that I'm lacking that in a way. But at the same time, I do feel like I have community all over the world, which is something that I'll never take for granted. Like anywhere I go, more than likely I'll have someone or some type of connection. I have students from all over the world, friends from all around the world. But yeah, lately, as I am getting a little bit older, and like as I have been doing this for a lot longer now, I'm starting to begin to crave more structure and more stability. So I have been in a bit of like a shift lately where I'm like, okay, I know I'm going to be here in Peru until about October, like until the end of this year. Well, like almost end of the year. So let me see, like, what do I want to envision for myself next year? Like, do I want to continue this lifestyle, or do I want to build roots somewhere? So yeah, I'm kind of in a shift between, like, my mind kind of goes back and forth. Like I do want to build roots. Then I'm also like, I don't know where, and I'm also like, but I love traveling. It's this hard thing. Hard balance. I think ideally, I would like to have a home. Like I would like to at least have a home base, an apartment, or somewhere that I can call home. And then still travel, but maybe not full time, maybe just like a few months out of the year for like 1 or 2 trainings, treat here and there, but have my community. Because I'm really craving community. That's what I'm envisioning for myself next year, is like community, roots,
Still freedom to travel a few times a year or go work here for a month or a few months.
Yeah, like I don't want to be tied down. This is why, like I always say, will never see myself going back into like the corporate world.
Yeah.
I've been out of it and I've lived life on my own terms for the past 3 years. That it's like, even if, maybe I'm not making as much money as I know I would if I had gotten a full-time job, my happiness and my like freedom is more worth it to me.
Yeah.
And I always find a way to make it work. Like I always will find a way to make it work.
On the note of finding a way to make it work, I feel like a lot of teachers, yoga teachers who's listening to this, who kind of maybe dream of living a teaching and traveling yoga teacher lifestyle like you are, and you've been doing it like successfully. So how realistic is it, or how difficult, easy is it for traveling yoga teachers to be sustainable? Like you're not going into your saving, but you're still making, and you still are able to afford to go back home once a year or a few times, and then finding a new job. So how has it been for you in terms of how are you making it? I guess.
Yeah. So okay. I didn't have a savings for a while. I'm not gonna lie. Well, I had it in the beginning, like when I was traveling, because of like, all the unemployment and all that, like not having to pay rent. I had a savings. And then I kind of spent it all in my first few travels. But I've always been the type of person, and I do thank my dad for this, because my dad was very, very like, I think it was a little too toxic sometimes, but he was very much like not being smart with money.
Yeah.
So I do kind of have that personality where like I try to save money. Like I try to always have a backbone if God forbid something happens.
Yeah.
Even though I know my family will never let me be on the streets. Like my mom will always take care of me if it gets to that point, which it probably never will. But yeah, like I didn't have a savings for a while, and then I was able to build a savings again for that like chunk of time that I was back in the States. And then I remember from like just a lot of different places I was able to make a savings. And then when I travel, I don't pay rent. So I got better at like saving money.
Yeah.
So now I have a savings. It's not like an amazing savings. Like I wouldn't say I have, like for example, like my sister, she has like money in somewhere that's like multiplying. It's like I'm in the place where like I'm thinking of, I want to do that soon. So I would like to get a more stable income.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have a savings now, and I try not to touch it.
Yeah.
Unless I have to, unless like really, really I have to. So all the money that I get, I keep it in my checkings, and then if I have a little bit of money, I'll put it aside in my savings. But yeah, I guess the way I'm able to save is because I don't pay rent. And I'm not only getting salary when I travel, but also food and expenses.
Yeah, yeah.
But then, of course, traveling and all that stuff, like on my free time, spend money. Yeah, it's not easy. It's really not easy, and it's not always sustainable. Like I know a lot of people who live paycheck to paycheck in this industry, and I know I did for a while too.
Is there any advices you would want to give to yoga teachers who's listening who want to become a traveling yoga teacher? What kind of advice would you give? It doesn't have to be a financial or business advice, or it can be. What kind of advice would you give?
I would say just like take the leap, like you have to take the initial leap. There's going to be a resistance in the beginning, but if you know that something's calling you, you just have to go for it. And if you're someone who has to have a plan, I would say maybe try to be a little bit more open and have a little bit more room for flow.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the opportunities I got came to me when I didn't have any plan, when it just like, I just surrendered. So yeah, I would say like take the leap, maybe like more logistically speaking, save up your money, give yourself like a time frame. Like, okay, like if you have a stable job right now, maybe you're teaching full time, or maybe you have like a full-time job and then you're teaching part-time, but you want to make the shift to travel teaching. Give yourself like a time frame. Be like, okay, by like this time I want to leave. So like how much money can you save by that time? Can you, if you're someone who wants to like get rid of all your things, maybe start selling some of your stuff. I always say like the less things, the better. And this is something that I learned when I started traveling, was like, I really don't need, I had so much shit.
Yeah.
And like every time I would come home from a trip, I get rid of like more and more. I just love being light. I love being light. So yeah, I would say like start looking at where parts of your life you can minimize, think about like how long, if you want to travel long term, maybe it's best to not pay rent, like start like getting rid of your things. Like, can you put your stuff in storage or things like that? Like, yeah, it's not easy. There's always like the first thing that you have to do. But I would say the first thing is like making the decision to do it.
Yeah.
Again, that's like the leap. Some people like say they're going to do it, but they don't actually like make the decision or like say, okay, I'm going to go this time. And then, yeah, finding jobs is also another thing. There's so many online resources as to finding jobs. But then also doing your own research, like Googling, finding places, like where do you really want to travel? What places can you find there? Is there retreat centers? Is there hostels? Is there hotels? Places that you can offer your service, like make websites with your offerings on there and offer it. A lot of the times, like you can get jobs in yoga trade, but I think also just putting yourself out there and asking,
I feel like now listening to your story, what you're probably good at, and you're actually like maybe doing it, you're not thinking about it, but you're actually pretty proactive in doing is you do actually do research and like reach out to places. And even like first time you got hired to teach at this moksha in Peru, the opportunity disappeared for a while, but then you kept asking like, hey, I still want to work. I still want to work. Same thing with reaching out to another teacher training school that you're going to do in Guatemala. You reached out and said like, hey, can I shadow your teacher training? So in the future, maybe there'll be another opportunity that comes that you can actually teach one, which you did get that.
Exactly.
So that's very you being proactive in like playing almost like a long-term game, you're looking at it, building relationships.
Yeah. And in the beginning, like if I were to even look back 3 years ago, I would never have guessed this is where I would be. Like I would be like amazed, So, and it takes time. Of course, in the beginning, you're not going to get as many, I would say, better opportunities because you need experience and things like that. Unless you are really already an experienced teacher who wants to leave and start traveling. Like for me, I kind of started in the beginning of my journey. So my experience kind of just like came while I was traveling. But yeah, just like putting yourself out there and like you said, now I'm fortunate enough to go back and after my time here in Moksha ends, I'm going to the Sacred Valley to teach at another training with the school that I had gone to in Guatemala. And then that's a school that like I do see myself growing with in the future. Say if I decide to come back here next year, So it's like building relationships and connections. And now I think it is something that traveling and teaching is more realistic to me now. Like before, I remember I was always down on myself, like not being able to find jobs or of like how you said it, like plans getting canceled. This place was out of the picture for a while. So it was like a lot of frustration. But now I think it's like more fluid in that. And I always, like you said, I always tell myself I'm in it for the long game.
I love that. And what do you love the most about being a full-time traveling yoga teacher? And what do you find it most challenging?
I think I like about traveling, teaching full-time, I love the people I meet. Like I love meeting people and students from all over the world, from all walks of life. It's like I've met some of the most amazing people once I've started traveling, teaching. It's crazy. Like the people I would have never in a million years met had I stayed. Not to say the people in Florida are bad, because I have amazing people in Florida as well. But it's like I just met such incredible people. People like I had no idea even there were people like that out there. Connecting, like networking. And then also I think my confidence and just like my independence flourished a lot once I started on this path because I just have more trust and more faith that like things are going to work out and I have a lot of independence and it's not that I don't want, because I am someone who does want a family and I would like to settle down eventually at some point in my life. But, right now in this phase, I'm really happy with having freedom and independence. And then I would say like the hardest part is just that lack of consistency and structure sometimes, because most of the jobs are contract based. So it's like if you finish a contract, what's next? You have to find another one. So it's always like you're always kind of on high alert because you just, unless you're really, really good at surrendering. That took me skill. Like I wasn't always good at just letting go. But now, because I have a lot of trust, so the inconsistency, I think, is the hardest part. And then also leaving places, constantly having to meet new people. So it's like, it's a good thing to meet new people, but it's also hard. Always having to, in every new place you go, you're with new people. So that can be draining a little bit. It does feel a little bit hard. And then you get really close to a community in one place, and then you leave. But I think the pros and the cons are, they outweigh each other. And I think in anything, there's just as many pros as there are cons. So
totally. For you, what does success mean to you as a yoga teacher?
So, good question. I think success means how much you can live a life in alignment to your truth, and so, like, I don't think success is going to be different for everybody. But if I'm living my life in alignment with my purpose and my soul, then I think I'm living a successful life, Like, if I'm living life for someone else because this is what I think I should be doing, because I have to impress my family or do that, maybe I'm making a lot of money. Maybe I am quote unquote successful, like on the outside, but like on the inside, I'm probably not happy. I'm probably miserable. So I'm not really successful. Like I always say, like, the real rich is being happy and being fulfilled, healthy. Like health is wealth. So I think it's like how authentic and how much in alignment can you live, how much can you follow your soul, like your heart, regardless of what people may think of you. Some of the most successful or happy people have nothing, like, and of course I also think success does have a good amount of, like, how much can I touch other people's hearts and souls, like I love when other people see me and like see my medicine and like and it's working for them, like I love when people tell me, like, oh my God, this helped me so much, because I think as humans we thrive off connection. So from that place of alignment and truth, are you helping other people? Are you providing something for the greater population or community? And I think, like, what we do is really important, especially now when there's so much hate and stuff. It's like if the little that we can provide of that to other people, I think it's so successful, and just in that. And if people receive it, then that's it. My work was successful.
And do you feel right now in your life, you're living in alignment?
I do think right now. I think, I know that right now I am very much in alignment with my soul. I feel like I've come such a long way, and not only like in my lifestyle, but just in who I am as a person. Like I feel like I'm so myself right now, and I feel like I just can't be anyone else. Like in the past, I used to, like, when you're on this journey of like finding yourself. Of course, when I first started traveling, I was finding myself. And of course, I do think that I'm always going to be shedding layers, like always, always growing. But I think right now, at this point in my life, I'm very much in alignment with my like truth, and I'm very authentic in what I do and what I say. And of course, I make mistakes. I'm not perfect, but I feel really in alignment.
Well, that's beautiful, and I think I can see that. I can see that you are living your truth. You're in alignment. When you see somebody like that, or when you meet somebody like that, I feel like you can see them glowing from inside and out. It's not just outside glow. There's also glow inside, both. And I remember when the seed of wanting to become a yoga teacher was first planted in me. I lived in South Africa, and I started practicing yoga more regularly, and I saw the glow in the yoga teachers. I was like, wow, I want that glow. That they were, and now that I think back, they were living in alignment with their purpose or their dharma or their soul, So I think that's beautiful.
Oh, I love that.
Last question I have is, where do you see your teaching and your yoga teaching life going in the future? If you have a direction or a vision or goals.
Okay, so I would love to. Right now I'm about to host my first retreat right after, like in 2 weeks. You know, it's my first one, so I'm a bit nervous seeing how it goes. But I really, in the future, do see myself leaning towards retreats and like hosting more intimate gatherings, specifically for women as well. Like I really want to hold like spaces for women, for yoga, like song, you know, like I see myself doing more of that, more group, especially because I also love teacher trainings a lot. I see myself gravitating more towards doing more of those in the future. Teacher trainings, group things, retreats, rather than like teaching full time in studio.
Yeah.
So yeah, I also would love to one day maybe host, like have my own teacher training, you know, with experience. I feel I am seeing the way a lot of teacher trainings are run, and I'm being able to get a vision now of like how I would do it if it was my training. So yeah, I think in the future, and I don't think it's too much into the future, to be honest. Because I used to think right now where I am now was like years into the future. So I'm like, maybe even in the next year, 2 years, I see myself doing more of that, like retreats, training, but also still teaching on trainings, but then maybe doing like my own little like, you know, even like 50 hours this, or like sound immersion thing. And then I've always had a dream to have my own space. The thing about that is, I don't know, we'll see. That's always like, if it happens, it happens. I don't know if I would want to have my own studio, but maybe some type of space, whether it's like a retreat center or, you know, even like a center that's not just for yoga, but like healing, healing arts, like dance, music, yoga. So we'll see. But it also comes with like where I choose to settle, and like a lot of that, I don't know for sure. I don't have a very, very clear vision on that yet. Yeah, I'm definitely trying to lean more into the direction of retreats and trainings. To do a few amount of those a year. And then if I'm based somewhere, to have a studio that I teach at when I am there. Maybe moving a bit, we talked about this, maybe moving a bit online. But something about going online scares me. I don't know, I'm just, I have a lot of resistance towards it. But I do feel like it would be nice to, because, you know, everything is online these days. So we'll see.
Well, exciting. I'm very excited for your first retreat that's starting soon. I'm sure it's going to be amazing.
Thank you.
I'm excited for that. So you're already making a huge step towards that vision and dream that you have. So I look forward to following your dreams and your path in the future, see where you go. Thank you so much, Alina, for your time to chat with me for this interview. And tell the listener where they can find you, like where all the socials or even upcoming events, anything you want to share.
Cool. First of all, thank you, Rika. It was really cool to talk about all that. It like brought me back. I'm like, whoa, I've really come a long way, huh? So yeah, you can find me on Instagram. My Instagram is Alina Kaz. So 2 Z's, so ALINA KAZZ. And then my website, you can also find me on my website at alinakazan.com. My last name is Kazanjian, so I always shorten it. And yeah, I mean, I will be here in Peru until October. Retreats, trainings, retreats, back to back. So as like events for the next year, I don't have anything planned yet for next year. But again, like I said, my goals are to have retreats coming next year. I am in the process right now of planning a retreat with my friend Sonia. In March, like March, April, in somewhere in Central America. So that is something that I am in the process of working on right now, which I'm really excited on. But other than that, yeah, I Instagram is probably where I post most of my things.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will link all of that on the show notes so people can find you. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Full-Time Yoga Teacher podcast. I hope you were inspired by Alina and her path of teaching and traveling and teaching so many teacher trainings at such a young age. I think it's so inspiring, and she has this very wise soul about her. So when I'm speaking with her or working with her, I even forget that I am 10 years older than her. So if you are interested in learning a little bit more about her upcoming retreat in Panama, that's happening, I believe, the spring of 2025, and you just know the retreat's going to be very nourishing and grounding, full of music and connection and kind of returning home to yourself. So I highly recommend checking out her retreat. I'll put the link on the show notes. That is it for me. Next time you are going to hear from me, I will be recording from California, back in Long Beach. So I'm going to enjoy my last couple more days here in El Salvador before going back home to California, which I look forward to seeing my students, my friends, my family. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.